All right, everyone, we are streaming in Facebook. I am here with my wonderful sister, Molly, and I've invited her here to share about what she does because it's also really important work in the world. So, welcome, Molly.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here.
So glad to have you. So, yes, we are identical twins. There's a story behind that. We didn't know we were identical until we were 38. We thought we were fraternal. So, as you can see in this interview, we look a lot alike, but not exactly alike. So, you can understand why there was some confusion there. So, little intro for Molly. Molly is a postpartum doula, new parent guide, private chef, and mother who believes that postpartum education and support are key to shifting many societal ills. Through her work in her business Life Beyond Birth, she helps families have calm, confident, and peaceful fourth trimesters. She incorporates Ayurvedic wisdom into the care that she provides. So, welcome, Molly.
Thanks.
And I'd like to just start by asking you to tell us a little bit about what you do.
All right. So, for the past over a decade, I have worked as a postpartum doula, and a lot of people are familiar with that, but a lot of people don't know what postpartum doulas do. And so, what I've done for that time period is work with families that have new babies, and I've worked with first babies and fifth babies, and kind of looks different depending on the family, but there's always a need for support after a baby is born. And so I help nourish new mothers. I help with breastfeeding. I help with household running, just keeping things going with dishes and laundry and cooking. I do specialize in cooking for postpartum recovery. And so that's something I can talk about more. And then I also help couples kind of figure out how to work things out between them and work things out becoming a bigger family. I help older siblings kind of integrate the experience of having a new baby. And I also do, well, yeah, that's kind of postpartum doula world. And then I am slowly shifting my title to be a new parent guide, which I see as broader than just postpartum doula. So I'm incorporating education for couples who are expecting their first babies, as well as I do something called birth story healing, which is a process that was developed by Pam England, who wrote Birthing from Within, to help make peace with a birth that may have been traumatic or just had an element that doesn't sit right with a mom or partner. And so yeah, and then I've added other courses and downloads and just trying to kind of offer support in from every angle to help out with the fourth trimester, which is the first 3 months following birth.
Yeah. Will you share a little bit about how you got into this work? Why did it appeal to you?
Sure. So when I had my first child in 2007, I was teaching anthropology at the college level at University of North Carolina at Asheville. And I myself was reading a lot of sort of anthropological texts and information about pregnancy, birth, and parenting in other cultures. And that was really interesting to me. And then I ended up teaching a course after he was born called Cultures of Child Rearing. And I was just really interested in kind of early parenting for a long time. And then when he was born, I joined a new mom group and I started hearing stories of how under-supported moms were and how people didn't understand like what food to bring them or how to just help out in around the house or just listen to them. There's a lot of like, oh, well, you have a healthy baby, so, just get over it, whatever it is. And so I felt like I wanted to do something to help people like myself. And there are a lot of jobs out there for for helping families with babies who have like developmental disabilities or some sort of delays. But I was just like, no, just regular people need support, like just run of the mill people like myself. And so I searched around and I found out about postpartum doulas, and they were pretty uncommon at that point. So I trained in 2009, and yeah, just gradually got out of teaching anthropology and into supporting new families.
Awesome. Yeah. So, can you talk about and share with us about the importance of just celebrating that rite of passage into motherhood? And
Sure. Yeah. And
walk.
actually, one thing I'd like to add to that last question, how I got into this, is that I was very well supported after my son's birth in 2007 by you and by our mom and by our community that we grew up in. And there were tons of people bringing us food and coming over and holding him and helping out around the house. And so I had a taste of what that could be. And I think that also inspired me to become a postpartum doula.
Yeah, you wanted other people to experience that.
Yeah, because I saw so many other moms struggling.
Yeah.
And it's enough of a struggle even when you do have support. So so yeah, that was good to have a taste of what that could be like. Yeah. So in terms of the rite of passage to parenthood, I think this is for partners as well as mamas, but I think for mamas, there's something particularly wonderful about connecting with a circle of women who is close to you and understands you and wants to support you in your parenting and birth and pregnancy choices. And so I highly recommend doing like a blessing of some sort before birth. It's just a way of feeling really connected to a community and getting psyched up for birth and for having a baby to take care of, and knowing that you're well supported. And so I think doing anything you can do that's some sort of a ritual and honoring amongst your community, and being seen as going through a transition. You know, we can go through these transitions in our lives, but if we're not witnessed by our communities, there's a piece missing. And so if we have some sort of a blessing, and then move into that experience with that community, it's just tremendously supportive. And so I actually have come up with I have a download on my website that's for a mama blessing, but I just put up yesterday one that's for a virtual mama blessing, because a lot of these gatherings aren't happening anymore because of COVID. And so I think it's tremendously important that we still continue to do these things, and it's totally possible over Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever you choose. And so yeah, check those out.
Great. Yeah. So really honoring the rite of passage that once this baby is born, life isn't the same.
Yeah, and we have such a cultural dialogue or mantras about bouncing back, getting your body back, getting your life back. And I just don't subscribe to any of that. Like you are inherently changed when you become a mother, and your body is different, your life is different, and it's just an exercise in frustration trying to get everything back to the way it used to be.
Yeah.
Because nothing is the same.
Yeah, not going backwards. We need to go forward. So
Right.
What is this new identity, new relationship with yourself, in addition to your relationship with the baby, right, and partners and other children, and everything changes.
And there's grief there, you know, there's letting go, and it's not all happiness and joy and rainbows. It's a mixture. There's a shadow side as well. And so to recognize that and embrace it and say, oh yes, here I am grieving my former self that doesn't exist anymore, and opening to this new self that is blossoming through this process.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think of the Joseph Campbell quote of, we must die to who we've been to be born to who we're becoming. And when you birth a baby, you also birth a new self-identity, totally, new reality for yourself. Yeah. Okay. By the way, when you had Oscar, I was just like, in awe of you. It was amazing. I've
Right.
gotten to be at, well, both babies, I was in awe. Well, I guess even more Alma because she was so big, but, but I, what I was starting to say is that after you had Oscar, the change that I saw in you was one of, you became more joyful, like more engaged with life, having this new little, little person. That threshold that you crossed into motherhood seemed to awaken a lot of new wonder in you and
Mm.
joy. And so that was really fun.
Oh, thanks for that reflection. Yeah, I think it can be really wonderful to kind of explore the world anew with
Mm-hmm.
a person that's getting to know the world for the first
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So what do you wish people knew about the fourth trimester, that time right
Oh,
after
so
birth?
many things. So this is where I am growing right now is I have created a course that's a 9-week course for couples that are expecting their first baby. And it's to fill their toolbox so that when they get to the fourth trimester, they're not totally unprepared. And so I wish people knew more about breastfeeding. I wish people knew more about how to handle their couple dynamics when they're dealing with, sleep deprivation and stress and learning new skills, and a baby is crying, and there can be a lot of chaos and overwhelm. And so, yeah, that I wish people knew more about what to eat for postpartum recovery. In Ayurveda, the fourth trimester, or actually the first 6 weeks, is called the sacred window. And I love that because I think of a window, it's open, and there's an opportunity for either really deep nourishment during that time or really deep depletion. And I just see we're a culture of deeply depleted mothers. And I have experienced that myself, especially with Alma's birth. After she was born, I just didn't slow down. And so I have a sense of what that's like. It's so hard to recover from afterwards. But if you can see those first 6 weeks as an opportunity for just deep nourishment, deep rest, deep connection with your baby and partner, then everything flows from there. So I wish people knew more about that. I actually have a graphic. Can I share that?
Sure.
I'm going to do a little screen share here.
And while Molly's loading that, if anybody has questions, that's watching live and wants to write in some questions, send them on in. We can engage with you live.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so this is kind of the typical current reality for couples in the United States. And I'm not saying this is for everybody. I know that there are people out there who are really getting prepared and are talking to friends and family and stuff like that. But in general, this is the current cultural climate that I am trying to shift. So currently, the focus is on pregnancy and birth, independence, and self-sufficiency. And there's very little awareness of postpartum. And so that leads to just focusing on pregnancy and birth, which are totally valid things to focus on. I'm not saying don't focus on those things. And birth is a huge event in life, and it only lasts a short amount of time. And then postpartum lasts for the rest of your life. So I think it really is something that we, as a culture, we need to be talking about more and sharing more. So anyway, if we go from pregnancy and birth focused on independence and self-sufficiency, then we go into postpartum, and there's a lot of fear and stress and isolation and overwhelm, as I was talking about earlier, just the kind of chaos that can happen. And that leads to shame and guilt, this sense of what's wrong with us? We don't know anybody else who has struggled like this. And so something's wrong with us. Why are we struggling more than other new parents? And then that leads to judgment and hiding from judgment, hiding from support, hiding from sharing what's actually going on. And so then that is the foundation of your baby's life, is this sort of stress and fear and isolation and overwhelm. And that just sucks for everybody. And then newly pregnant couples are blissfully unaware of postpartum. There's just this cultural narrative that I just have to get through birth and then everything else will be happily ever after. I know how to care for a baby, no big deal. I'll just put baby on my back and carry on with life as it used to be. That's kind of our cultural narrative, and it doesn't work. And so this is the narrative that I would like to shift to. Our cultural shift is that the focus during pregnancy and birth and postpartum is on connection, well-being, respect, and learning. And then that feeds into a postpartum that has deep nourishment, deep bonding with baby, and trusting new skills. And then that feeds into sharing with your community what's going on. Community comes into support, taking over the mother's daily tasks, helping her deeply rest and learn to care and feed for her baby. And then that leads to sharing of joys and challenges, connection, sharing needs. And then since that is out in the open, newly pregnant couples are fully aware of the wide spectrum of experiences in postpartum, which leads to more connection and well-being and respect and learning. And then we go round and round and it'll be a beautiful world. And so many of our societal problems will not exist because babies will get what they need and parents will get what they need. And that's what it's all about.
Wonderful. Those are really helpful graphics to just see the current reality and the possibility, which some people get to experience.
Yes.
But it would be great to have for everybody. I want to point out too, just from being in, having an Ayurveda practice, that something that I've seen over and over again is women that didn't have that awareness of the sacred window, because a lot of women don't. Oh, nice mug. Molly's drinking out of the magical Molly mug that I made her.
It's magical Molly. I think it's backwards for people though.
No, we can see it.
It's backwards for me.
Oh. So one thing that I have seen is even women who are postmenopausal, a lot of whom have adrenal fatigue or an autoimmune issue or Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, right? They come into this like place of readiness to support their health through learning Ayurveda. And I have found over and over again, when I ask them what their postpartum experiences were, that's often the seed that was planted for depletion that led to down the road, right? We talk about in Ayurveda, the small drip into the process of samprapti is what it's called, but it's like the slow faucet drip that over time fills the bucket and then overflows and creates a disease. But if we can catch those small drips in the leaky faucet before it manifests as something bigger, that's what you're talking about, is like starting at the root. Like, hopefully we're arriving at motherhood from a place of nourishment. Not everybody is, but then birth, postpartum can be really depleting if we don't have the nourishment that we need.
Yeah. Can I just add something really quickly? Sorry. There's this woman, Isha Oaks. She's actually dead now, but she founded a school out in Colorado called the School for Sacred Window Studies, and it's an Ayurvedic postpartum care program. And she says, and I don't know, this might be in other Ayurvedic texts or something, but she says that how you live the first 42 days after birth is how you will live your next 42 years. And so what you're saying about, yes, that's kind of the root, is this deep depletion during that sacred window. That makes so much sense, because if you have deep depletion in that postpartum time, that depletion gets harder and harder to correct. But with things like what you're doing in the Vitality Circle, it's totally possible. It's just harder than if you just do those 6 weeks really, really well.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if everybody had that postpartum nourishment and then we weren't dealing with, 20, 30, 40 years later, big diagnoses and feeling awful, really. Yeah. It usually comes after years of feeling awful. Totally. So we can avoid that by how we live.
Yeah, and there's
Um,
a lot in motherhood about like self-sacrifice and putting your children or your partner ahead of you in terms of meeting needs, and that can feed into that as well.
yeah.
And so starting out motherhood with a deep commitment to yourself, and yeah, and then following these guidelines to make it nourishing. All right,
Yeah.
what's your next question? Sorry.
And then we teach our daughters.
And then we teach our daughters,
And then they
exactly.
know, right? And the communities that surround them. So I'm going to change our order of questions a little bit, just because we've already ventured into talking about Ayurveda, and just have you share a little bit more about how you incorporate Ayurveda into what you offer. And
Cool. Yeah. So I don't get into really nitty gritty stuff, but basically my understanding is, and this is from Chinese medicine as well, and it's super cool to see how they're similar. I know they're connected way back when, but so basically when a woman is pregnant, she is full of the elements of earth, water, and fire. And then birth is this sudden event that happens, and those elements kind of get pushed out of the body. And what is left is air and space, or ether. And so what I see as my job, and a mama's, kind of guidelines for what she does postpartum, is to bring the earth and water and fire back into her body. And so it's basically a vata time, like the air and space ether is vata characteristics. And so we're trying to bring back some pitta in the fire, especially digestive fire, and then also some kapha with earth, and water is with both of those, right? So so that's a lot through diet. And it's crazy to me how many women think like, oh, a healthy postpartum diet is like a salad and a smoothie. And those are actually some of the worst foods you can eat in postpartum, partially because they're cold, they're raw, and they're hard to digest. And so I ask mamas, like, do you want your vital life force to be going towards warming up a smoothie or breaking down raw vegetables? Or do you want it to go towards producing breast milk and healing from birth? And of course, they say the latter, right? Like, they want the healing to happen, and they just had no idea, because our sort of cultural narrative around healthy food is salad and smoothies. And so the general guidelines are for vata pacifying stuff, right? Like, we want fully cooked food, we want to eat it warm, good fats, um, mildly spicy, to bring in some fire. And when I say spicy, I'm not talking about jalapenos, I'm talking about black pepper and cinnamon, so those are kind of the general guidelines. And then also a piece that a lot of people don't consider is when they eat. And I know a lot of people have done the earlier, later dinner challenge and worked with you on lots of different things around eating. But when you eat, in your cleanses, your detoxes,
Mhm.
are talk about this as well, is when you eat is really important too. And so constantly snacking can manifest as exhaustion, like just chronic exhaustion. And so a lot of moms think like, oh, I need to keep giving myself fuel because I'm so tired all the time. But actually giving their digestion a break helps their energy increase. So that is revolutionary for a lot of moms that I work with. And it's true for babies too. It's really interesting. Like, if babies are being fed all the time, they tend to have a lot more digestive distress. And there's a lot out there about feed the baby when they're hungry. Yes, feed the baby when they're hungry. But a lot of discomfort is misinterpreted as hunger cues. And so I work with a lot of parents to help them understand, okay, sucking is both for food and for comfort. And maybe going longer between meals for the baby will help the digestive discomfort. And it's amazing how well it works.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to add in there, I know something that you also are um, a, a share a lot is the benefit of beneficial fats too during that time. and that helps both the mom recover and the baby's development. And you were good, very good about eating your beneficial fats. Right?
Yeah. And they're long lasting calories, and they're soothing to digestion, and and they're good, come through the breast milk and help babies grow and their brains. Yeah, babies need a lot of fat. So
yeah. And there's the kind of cultural fear of keeping on the baby weight after giving birth. And we also know, like, depending on your dosha, you may have an easier or more challenging time losing that weight, but trying to lose it really fast and not nourishing yourself or your baby is incredibly detrimental,
right.
Over the long haul.
Yeah. And I like to help moms kind of understand generally what their dosha might be.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are more vata, that they do really need to have those dense calories, and try to keep weight on, actually. And then if they're more kapha, they need to just be really patient with themselves. Yeah. Breastfeeding is something that I've seen slowly take off weight with kapha moms. But it can also be something that waits until after the body is no longer needed for nourishing the baby, either through pregnancy or breastfeeding. So
yeah, there's not that demand on the body, and pitta is somewhere in between, right?
Like, somewhere in between. But I have a lot of moms that say, how did you lose weight? And if we're not similar dosha, I just say that doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, that's not the same as you. So yeah, I really subscribe to the, one size doesn't fit all. And yet the sort of protocols that I follow for postpartum cooking and teas and that sort of stuff is similar across the board. Right. But if a mom is more pitta and she's really wanting, and it's springtime and she really wants some fresh dandelion greens or something, yeah, we go for that.
Yeah. So coordinating with the season too, right? Like, you recognize the alignment there. So, so that's such a gift to all the families that you work with, is that you have that awareness to bring to them too. And, so why is postpartum care especially key at this point in time? Like, with COVID going on, our whole world being really uncertain, and adding on to that, like, what can we all do if we're not having babies right now, if we're just friends or family or grandparents? What can we do? And Betsy just said, as a grandmother, I find this wonderfully enlightening. So,
oh, lovely. Yeah, there's such a great role for grandmothers. And I think that your audience is more on the grandmother side than the childbearing side. And if there are grandmothers out there who want to talk more with me, I'm happy to talk with you. So yes, so right now we are in a time of global anxiety. And I think it is manifesting with a lot of pregnant and postpartum couples as really intense anxiety. And I just wrote a blog about this, coping with postpartum anxiety and its global anxiety. And so I think that's kind of the overarching picture. And then within that, there's just a whole heck of a lot of lack of support right now. Physical support and also emotional support. And so this is something that I am living right now, is this frustration with not working with families in person. Now I am going back this fall to work with families, but right now I'm not. And I think that there's a lot that people still can do. And one thing is that if you know somebody who's recently had a baby or is about to have a baby, and they are somebody you feel comfortable talking with on this level, like, just to ask them, how are you doing? What are you worried about? And just listen. Don't try to solve it, because there is no good answer right now. And there is a lot of worry and anxiety. And so just being willing to hear it, I think, is huge. And then another piece that I think is really important is bringing food is is okay. I listened to the Splendid Table. They had this great podcast or interview about COVID being transmitted through food. And it's very, very rare. It's really difficult to transfer through food. And so bringing food to families that have just had a baby is totally doable. And if you're concerned about it, make a soup that they can boil again in their house and
Leave it on their doorstep and run away.
Yes. Totally. Yeah, they can leave a cooler on their porch, or you can just leave something on their porch or front steps and go away. So providing food is great. And then there are other things you can do. You can go grocery shopping. You can run errands. You can take out the trash if they'll set it on their porch or their back steps or whatever. So letting it be known, like, I am here. I want to help. And if you live far away, you can order takeout or hire somebody like me once I'm back in the swing of things, or just have those conversations that are really supportive, because a lot of people, again, are kind of at home, shut off from the world, and just feeling a lot of shame and fear.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for those tips. So to wrap this up, thank you so much for being here. And can you share with us where people can find you?
Yes.
Online?
So I have a website it's lifebeyondbirth.com. And through that, you can find all of my free downloads, courses. I do virtual coaching. So even if you don't live in Western North Carolina, I can work with you online, or work with your granddaughters or daughters,
children,
online. And I do have some free downloads. One is called 4 Recipes to Start the 4th Trimester Off Right. And those are very much based in Ayurveda. They're great. But I use a lot of Ayurvedic concepts for palates that are more American. So it's not all Indian food. And then I also have a download called 10 Things You Actually Need for Baby, because there's so much marketed to new parents. And I think having a list of 10 things you actually need is pretty cool. And then I just put up this virtual blessing guide. That's great. And then I have 2 courses. One is an hour-long course that's just downloadable whenever you want, called 3 Secrets to a Happy and Healthy Postpartum. And then I have this 9-week course that's for first-time expectant couples. And the next one starts on August 24th, which is in a couple weeks. And so I would love to have anybody that might be interested in that contact me soon. And that is the one that just fills your toolbox with everything you need for having a confident, peaceful, and calm, and joyful, and connected 4th trimester. So,
and that's the way that people can really be in contact with you. Like that 9-week course is
right.
Being in conversation with you. These other things are,
just downloads.
Yeah.
So that one, we have a weekly meeting. It's very small. It's kept to 5 couples is the limit. So there's a really nice cohort that you go through together with. And then I also do the birth story healing. So that kind of rounds it out for me.
Yeah.
And I'm working on creating a baby blessing that is something to do once at the end of the 4th trimester, once the baby is 3 months old. So
Awesome.
I'll put out a guide for that soon. That's just another sort of community witnessing that rite of passage into real parenthood.
Yeah. And I just want to add on a couple things. One is that it's really awesome. The course is really awesome because it's mama and daddy together, or if it's the same sex couple, whatever, it's the couple is going through this course together. So it's not just that one partner has the tools, it's that both do. And I think that is fabulous. And then the other piece is that birth story healing can be done at any point. So even those of you that are grandmothers, if you had a traumatic birth, or, like Molly said, like it's just not sitting well with you, or there's some unexplored stuff still lingering in you around any birth experience that you had, it can still be very helpful. It doesn't have to be like right after it's not too late is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's
to do
never
that
too
healing.
late. It's never too late. Yeah, I've worked with women who are 20 plus years out from giving birth,
Yeah.
and then women who are like 2 months out from giving
Right.
birth. So it's a wide spectrum. Yes. And back to the course and the feedback that I've gotten from couples who have gone through the course is that it immensely helped their connection and their bond, so that when the baby was born, they were totally on the same page and had kind of worked through their stuff that they needed to talk about amongst themselves.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing such good work and helping people get a good start in this world and
Oh, thanks for saying
changing the
that.
way parenting happens. So,
Well, same to you, Han. Thanks for all
yeah.
the good work you're doing.
Well, thanks. Yeah. May we all be nourished and supported in our lives.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining today. And we'll post Molly's website below this video, and feel free to be in touch with her about all her offerings. Thanks for being here, everyone. And thanks, Molly, for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.